I started using the same system with my assistant, with my warehouse managers, with my sales team, with everyone in my company, really anyone who I knew I would introduce this system to, almost for a selfish reason. I wasn't selling it. I didn't have the business yet, but just to get to know who they were better. And it was amazing what I realized I was missing out on.
You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. At Tap the Potential, we know you're longing to be freed from the constant demands of your business. You need a business that supports your life. And the problem is your business is taking over your life, leaving you frustrated and discouraged. We get it. At Tap the Potential, we believe work supports life, not the other way around. We understand you're paying a team, and most likely you're still having to do it all. There should be accountability. It should not be this hard, which is why, through our proprietary coaching system, we help thousands of business owners like you have more time for what's important to them and grow profit by 300 to 800%. Here's how we do it. Start by taking our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. You'll get an overview of your current quality of life as it relates to your business and next steps needed in your business to improve your quality of life while strengthening your business. Next, meet with our success team lead to debrief your results. Then, join our Better Business, Better Life program. By the end of your first year with us, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than you've ever had before. So, if you're ready to take your life back, the next step is to take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Profit designers, one of the things that I get asked a lot is, Sabrina, I have this team member and they started out working with me and they were motivated. They were a real go-getter when I brought them on board. But over time, I've seen them really seem to lose their motivation. They just don't have the spunk and the drive that they had when I hired them. Help me figure out how to motivate them. I think one of the greatest challenges we face is when we feel that desire to motivate others. Motivation comes from within, and it feels really hard to figure out, well, how do we motivate someone else? And even for ourselves, sometimes as entrepreneurs, let's face it, being in business is tough and we lose our motivation. Well, today's guest is going to share with us a system that he developed for himself through conversations with his wife, and something that brought them closer together in their relationship, which he has since shared with other business owners and other companies, and it's having a tremendous impact in helping people motivate not just themselves, but team members as well. So today we have Matt Granados joining us. Over the last decade, Matt has tested, developed, and helped thousands of others implement an effective and easy to duplicate system that will help you build an unbreakable foundation for your life, as well as motivate even the most unmotivated individuals in your life. These techniques, in versions such as keynotes, workshops, and individual coaching, have been taught and implemented in organizations of all industries and sizes. From Google headquarters and Twitter to the United States Air Force and professional organizations all around the world. Matt has been able to teach these systems to thousands of individuals along with his team at Life Pulse, Inc. Using these concepts, Matt has been able to do the following: build his first $1 million business by the age of 25, travel all over the world teaching top executives how to build an unbreakable foundation and sustainably motivate others, see continued success for thousands of individuals who have applied these systems to their lives and businesses. Along with speaking and coaching, Matt is also an author, featured columnist, and sought after expert in the field of motivating others. With all the success Matt has experienced, most importantly, Matt is happily married to his wife and business partner, Maria, with 2 amazing kids, Natalie and Zach. The drive behind Matt is his obsession to make sure no person's potential is wasted and that each person he comes in contact with, if they want, is able to experience their maximum level of success. Profit designers, at Tap the Potential, we are on a mission right now to be a positive force in social media during trying times for all of us entrepreneurs. In that regard, I would love it if you could help us out. We really want to get behind any of you who are doing good things in your communities, showing up and leading with love. If you are doing something to keep your team together during this time and you're sharing it in social media, or you come across another entrepreneur who is being a gift from their gift in some way that you notice, please use the hashtags Lead with Love and Be a Gift. Our team at Tap the Potential is on the lookout in social media for those hashtags, and we will be reposting those social media posts from the Tap the Potential social media. Let's all lead with love, be a gift, and shine bright during these trying times. So, Matt, I'm so excited to have you here with me today on the Profit by Design podcast, and we get to talk about one of our mutually favorite topics, which is how do we engage team members and really keep them motivated, especially beyond the hiring process. That's kind of, we were chatting a little bit before we turned on the mic, and we see the world in very similar ways with respect to the value of understanding what makes our team members tick and connecting that with our vision for our businesses. So your company is Life Pulse Inc., and you are all about how do you motivate yourself and others. And what I'm fascinated with is that you have some, I don't want to call them tricks because I think they're genuinely thought out strategies, but you have some strategies for motivating people who are not motivated. So I really am eager to hear about that. But before we go there, can you share a little bit about the background of your company and what's your why? Why did you develop Life Pulse Inc.?
Yes. So like most entrepreneurs, there's 2 reasons we start our companies: inspiration or desperation, right? That's one of the 2 reasons why. And this was kind of the third one I wasn't ready for, was by luck. I didn't plan on starting Life Pulse. I have other businesses that I've started for years prior. And I was talking with my wife, actually. And this is why it's so cool what I get to do now with companies the size I get to work with. But I was talking to my wife and she looked at me and said, I knew marrying you was going to be hard, but I didn't realize it was going to be this hard. Like, you're crazy. I said, no, I know, but you signed up for this for the rest of your life. So we have to figure this out. And she said, how do you do it? Like, you're all over the place, your head, your ideas, they're all over the place. I said, well, it's easy. I ask myself these 9 questions every Sunday before, then I just live them out every day. And she looked at me like I had like 6 heads. I was like, well, doesn't everyone do something like this? And she's like, can I see them? Can I use them? And I said, wow, that's the sexiest thing you've ever said to me. Like, you want to use my system? Like, this is amazing. So let's do it. So we started doing it. It was too ugly for her, so she made it look nice and pretty. We started doing it, and I realized I was so disconnected with the one person in my life that I should be most connected with. I thought I knew what she wanted. I was so far off. I mean, I kind of knew what she wanted, but not in the sense of like what she wanted to do to get there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, we both wanted a healthy family, but what does that mean to her? We both wanted to have a successful business, but what does that mean to her? And as a guy, right, if we can talk to the guys out there right now, we tend to think we know what we don't know instead of being honest that we don't know what we don't know. So this is what that system did. And I went, wow, wait a minute. If I don't know her, who else don't I know? So I started using the same system with my assistant, with my warehouse managers, with my sales team, with everyone in my company, really anyone who I knew I would introduce the system to, almost for a selfish reason. I wasn't selling it. I didn't have the business yet, but just to get to know who they were better. And it was amazing what I realized I was missing out on. So fast forward, a couple buddies asked if I could teach it to their company. And eventually it got in the hands of a Fortune 500 company that called me and said, hey, are you Matt Granados? I said, yes. They said, we have a copy of your book and we really want to talk. They said, okay, why? They said, it solves our biggest personnel problem. When can you come in? Now, remember, I'm a dumb entrepreneur. You ask an entrepreneur that question, they jump on whatever plane they have to jump on because now there's a new business, right? Let me chase that new rabbit. So I went in and had this conversation. I had no intention of starting a business. And we talked for a day or two, explained how the system works, what they could do, how they can implement it. And they said, wow, we would have paid you a ton of money for this. We really appreciate you giving your time like this. And I sat back and I said, you still can. I mean, I still accept checks, cash, gold, like you can still pay. But real quick, what do you mean by that? They said, this solves our biggest problem. And the problem is that we can't connect our corporate desired metrics with our individuals' desired lifestyles. And I looked at them, I said, is that just your issue? And they said, no, every business is having that issue right now. Every single business. And I said, do you mind if I use that line? And they said, no, go for it. So that's what I tell everyone. That's literally what we do with companies. And what happened was I called my wife and said, remember you told me that I was a little too crazy and went all over the place? And she said, yes. I said, well, because of that, you are the reason we are starting a new business. So we laugh about it now. And that's how LifePulse started. And from that company, it led to working with companies like Twitter, Google, the United States Air Force. But my blood and my heart is with the small business because that's who we are. We work with bigger businesses, but we really make massive impact and strides with smaller businesses. So everything we do is based on the individual. And because of that, I don't care if you're a startup. I don't care if you're a $5 million business, a $10 million business, a $100 million business, a Google, a Twitter. Our content and the way we teach doesn't change because it's based on truths, based on humans, and based on their desires. So that's the short-ish version of it.
I love it. And so there's a few things that really struck me as you were talking. Number one is your awareness that you knew what your wife wanted on a broad scale. And when she said, a successful business and a healthy family, you filled in the blanks with your own thinking about what that is instead of finding out what that means to her. And the other thing you said is, what does the path look like to get there? Because you may have a whole different path in mind for how to achieve that. And it sounds like you two did. And that was the richness of the conversations that started to evolve from those 9 questions. So I connect that to what happens when we sit down with our team members as leaders, and we really have great intentions. We want to get to know our team members. We want to understand their hopes and dreams. We've read The Dream Manager, for heaven's sakes, right?
One of my favorite books.
And we know we're supposed to have these conversations. And so we start asking our team members about their hopes and dreams. And they say, I want my kids to go to college and I want this and that. And if we don't go deeper into what that means, if we just allow ourselves to fill in the blanks with our own thinking and ideas about what that is, that's where all kinds of breakdowns in communication and connection and lack of connection with the company's vision. And I just have to share, one of the most fun things that I've gotten to do in this last couple of years is share our company vision with our team members and have them share their visions, and then connect the dots, like to show them, okay, this is what you want to achieve. Here's how that connects with the vision for Tap the Potential, and how when we work together, this can happen. And like you said, you've been in large corporate environments, very large companies, and you have an impact. And when you work with small business, you teach these skills, the impact is immediate and it's massive. And so I really resonate with that. What we get to do at Tap the Potential when we change one business owner and we get to work with their team, what those skills the business owners and the teams learn, they take that home to their family. We've had clients whose team members do vision boards with their family because they learned to do a vision board on their team. And then to have those conversations, just like you shared with your wife, and talk about, on this vision board, what does this mean to you within a family, to have that conversation going when it wasn't there. So as you were talking, you mentioned that, and you and I had the conversation before we started the recording, you mentioned that you've been in these larger companies that we all aspire as entrepreneurs. We think we want to have these companies that have really cool features and benefits for employees, like, ping pong tables, and, people get to have their laundry done, and, there's a cafeteria where all the organic, healthy snacks are served constantly. And we entrepreneurs really, we like, how do we provide kind of benefits and compete with that? You've had experiences in these larger companies where it looks great on the outside, and then you get in and you see something totally different. Can you speak some to that?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I like to relate that to, and before I want to touch on what you said just before, because I think it's so important, as you say, having those deeper conversations. And the reasons we find people aren't able to get there is twofold. Number one, the entrepreneur tends to think it's going to be a little bit more difficult of a conversation than it really is, right? So how do I even have this conversation? But even more importantly, the individual we have the conversation with doesn't know what they really want. Like they don't think this stuff through. So it's like saying, like guessing what type of ice cream I want to eat. And I don't know. So I just say vanilla and then I eat it and I really want chocolate. Like we're both dissatisfied, except for it costs the company money. So what our program does, kind of these tricks like you were talking about, is we put a system that brings value to them. And then because of that, they use the system. But the value we get out of it is we get to hear things, and we train the managers on how to pick up on trends to help the individual understand what they really want. Then we can give them that. So a great example, back with my wife. I want to provide for my wife. She wants me to provide for her. For me, provide is go out, kill, bring back food, right? That's what a man does. To her, it's be there for her. Big difference. So she's saying, I want you to provide. I'm saying I want to provide. However, that doesn't mean the same thing. Now, we both like nice things. We both like bringing money in from the company. However, if all things went aside, what she doesn't want me to do is dive into work, sacrifice the family, and because I need to provide. So just again, I like to relate everything back to families and back to personal situations because we can relate on everything. And in the book, I talk about Motivate the Unmotivated. I talk about there's no difference between, different people's challenges in their life when you compare them based on, instead of saying ER, higher, smaller, harder, to smallest, highest, best, right? End your conversation with an EST and you can relate to people much, much easier. So that's what I find. And that's why these systems are so important and so impactful. So back to these larger organizations, I think we all, and again, I say we all because I'm one of you guys, small organization, very lean. And I would go in and work with these companies. And it's not all of them. And it's not even the company as a whole. I think the company as a whole, their mindset is absolutely spot on. I mean, they are creating a place that is fantastic to be. Issue is we need to make sure the people are getting there also. So when I was working at the Air Force, we sat down and went to have lunch. And look, the Air Force is not known for the same culture as some of the other companies that we work with, but I think you'll understand what I'm saying towards this story. And you go to have lunch at the Air Force. If anyone's ever been there, it's 4,000 people all go in. They eat the delicious lunch you can imagine the military will provide our troops. And everyone's standing. And then the commander says something. And I think he says wings down. And all of a sudden, 3,999 people sit down besides me because I don't know what's happening. And when you see 4,000 people all move at once, it takes your breath away. So I'm kind of standing there in a suit, right? So I'm sticking out. Someone finally pulls me down. And I was amazed how well this machine runs. And then what happened was, as I got in and started working with some of the commanders and the cadets, what I realized was this machine is running, but it's very poorly oiled, meaning the individuals that are keeping the machine alive are basically right at their mouth and about to go underwater. They are doing everything they possibly can to survive. And because of that, they don't have any systems to manage who they are. Now, they're still doing their job because otherwise they get kicked out. And the military has the ability to just put another person there, right? Put another tool in the machine. In our lives, in our companies, we don't want to do that. So I learned this lesson as we started one of our first businesses, and we'd hire every individual off Craigslist. And I realized these individuals could do the job. We created systems. We created a great hiring process, right? We created a way to bring them through properly and train them. However, they needed to manage the rest of their life so they could be the person we hired. And that's what we do is we bring the person you hired to work every single day.
Wow. So that's really about tapping the potential of that individual every single day. So what is it that you're doing and that you're teaching? What is having that impact?
Yeah. So in the book, we talk about the motivational formula. It's called Motivate the Unmotivated. And I would show a copy where I would say, but it's the proven system for sustainable motivation.
Okay.
And that's what we want to do. I know that's what you guys do with Tap the Potential is like, yeah, we want to bring this out, but we don't have to keep chasing this thing to come out. Like we want to bring it out so the person kind of discovers it and realizes it so that they will do it on themselves, right? And that's the goal is sustainability. So in this book, we talk about this formula and it's the sum of you plus the sum of them times whatever system you use equals the results you get. And what we go through and we work with every client, okay, so where in this formula do we need to work? Is it you as a leader? Is it them, meaning how well you know them, which almost always that's in there? Or is it just there's no system to exponentially grow what you're doing with your team? And then we find which ones we go down, and that's what we teach. So for the best way to describe that, if you're an individual, it's like, I need to get myself back where I need to be so I can be a good leader. We have a program we do that we call the 90-day goal rush, where we take 90 days, pick whatever 7 goals you want, no more than 7, but 7 goals, and we will coach you through specifically how to achieve every single one of them. And we just break them down step by step. It's nothing earth-shattering what we do, but the results and the goal is all about consistent progress towards that goal. It's that journey. It's not the achievement. It's the success, right? It's the worthy ideal that you're going after. It's the progressive movement towards that. If you have yourself in order, hey, I got this, which again is the biggest kiss of death when it comes to motivating people, is thinking you know everything, is then about working with them. And that's our motivation management program, where we come in and we'll show you how do you actually understand what these people want. And this is the one I want to dive into a little bit more, is people don't know what they want. So by using our system, this LP planner that we do, it's a weekly planner. We go in and there's 3 questions at the top of it that we ask everybody. And all your listeners can do this. The first is, what are you focused on? We say, what's your one word for the week? And everything's based on a 7-day period. Then we ask, what are you grateful for? Then we ask, what are you working towards? And what are you working towards in what we call our 4 vital signs of fulfillment. That's internal, how are you growing your mind? Professional, how are you growing your career? Physical, how are you growing your body? And then relational, how are you growing the connections in your life? And what I found is I know what people should be doing professionally. I don't have a clue what's happening in their personal life. And a lot of people will go, well, yeah, but I don't want to blend personal and professional. Then you're late to the game of 2020. Like, social media has disrupted that concept of personal and professional. It's all one now. And if you're a manager who's trying to keep it separate, you are the last to know everything. It is not the strategy you want to be taking in today's day and age. So instead, we say, look, let's find a way that we can safely bring that all together. And I found those 3 questions tell me. So what are you focused on? That one word. What is it that's going on? If it's happiness, if it's marriage, if it's my marriage, right? What's going on that you're focusing on? What are you grateful for? And the reason I use gratitude is gratitude reveals growth. I truly believe that. And because of that, if I know what you're grateful for, I can start using that, right? Not to manipulate you. There's a chapter in the book about the difference between manipulating and enlightening. It's a big difference. Manipulating, there's one winner. Enlightening, there's multiple winners. And what happens is, how do I enlighten you so that we can see how by doing your action here, it can help you get more of what you said you're grateful for? And then internal, how are you growing your mind? What books are you reading? I mean, the amount of times I've seen clients whose employees are reading the same book that could help the business, and neither of them know it because they don't talk about it. Physically, people who are running the same race. You know what happens when people run together? They talk. And if they work together and they're running together, what do we think they're talking about? I mean, we have clients who come up with some of the most amazing ideas because they find 2 runners and they let them go. And they say, hey, here's a thought while you guys are running. Think about this. Let me know what you got. And they're doing their hobby while they're working. All of a sudden, work is no longer an issue, right? If you love what you're doing, it's no longer work, right? That's what we all tell each other as entrepreneurs. We can actually let our employees enjoy it too. Physically, right? If they're running, like I said, and relationally, right? If they're having issues in their marriage and they have a big proposal due or a big pitch to a client, we might want to make sure we're good mentally with what's going on. That doesn't mean pull them from it, but let's support them. Or vice versa, relationally. Well, I'm just having issues with my parents. Well, what's wrong? Well, mom's going through this sickness, this illness, whatever it might be. Wow, you got this huge proposal coming up next week. Like, what can we do? If you know everyone's story, it's a lot easier to love on them, right? Which leads us to the biggest thing when it comes to motivation is the 2 different types. There's fear-based motivation and love-based motivation. Please understand when I say this, it's not love like, not kumbaya, let's hug. I mean true love, which is difficult, right? Fear is based on force. You can look back through history, all the people who have done fear-based motivation, forcing people to do things, which is probably what most of us have experienced and what most of us push out on people, which is why it's exhausting to be around your team. It's exhausting to get anything done because you're doing most of the energy. They're doing the labor, but you're there, cracking the whip, all pun intended, forcing them to do something that they should just willingly walk and do, versus love, which is based on understanding. And the problem is that's people like Martin Luther King, Gandhi. You go all the way back even to people like Jesus. You go to people like Mother Teresa, Princess Diana. These people who were all about love and understanding. And when their presence left, their motivation rose, right? That's the goal of sustainability, is when I leave, I want the motivation level to be as high, if not higher, And that's why when we come in, we teach this concept and it motivates the individuals in a sustainable way.
So there's a lot in what you shared there. So at Tap the Potential, we teach lead with love. As a psychologist, fear-based motivation does not work. You may get a temporary bump in performance, but it's going to go away as soon as whatever you're using to create fear goes away. When someone is internally motivated and it's that feeling of support, and you alluded to that love is difficult. It's not kumbaya. What is your definition of love? What for you, what does lead with love look like?
So my definition of love is simple. It's accepting people for who they are and who they're not. It's just flat out with one word, it's acceptance. And people go, well, that's kind of boring. I go, yeah, it's not romantic. Trust me. The amount of times my wife and I are romantic versus we are just loving each other while we stare at each other. My wife and I actually do a podcast we call Relationship, and it's where we deal with whatever issue we're dealing with live and record it and put it out. And it's been very therapeutic, obviously, for us, but it's been amazing how many people have reached out and go, wow, I thought you guys like never fought, right? You got this book, you got this journal, you guys probably like, we are just as much of a train wreck as every other human is. And that's where it comes, is just accepting. Okay, so who are you? Like if the world would accept each other, we all act like we do through social media, depending on which side of whatever political world you're in. Like, oh, we're so accepting, but not if you disagree with me. Well, then you're not accepting. Like we have to understand this concept. So that's why it's difficult. And the reason why I think it's also difficult is people don't know how to do it and they think it's harder than it is. And that's why what we've done is created simple, logical systems, right? And I also feel love's a choice. So sorry for all you romantics out there, right? But we created logical systems that allow individuals to share who they are without being too overbearing, without feeling too uncomfortable, and allows the manager to hear who they are without knowing too much, right? Like let you be the therapist. Like that's not what we want managers to be doing. We want managers to be managing.
Right. So it's about, I really hear it's about creating a safe space where people feel accepted and they can be themselves, and you're teaching appropriate boundaries. And so that people never feel like they're having to expose too much. The managers never feel like, oh, wow, I didn't know that was coming at me today in this one-to-one.
Right.
And I gather that is also a part of what you teach is the one-to-one, the value of the one-to-one conversation and the ongoing conversation. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think the one-on-ones that we do, and this is what is so interesting. So there's two ways to do it. We can try to teach it, which, as you know, doing this, in the same industry, very similar stuff. It's very difficult to teach this stuff. So what we do, and I learned this early on in my business, is there's two ways to grow a business: good people or good systems, right? When you get McDonald's fries, I don't care what you think about McDonald's, their French fries are going to taste the same every single time because it's a very clear system on how they do it. So everything we do has to be systemized and duplicatable before we introduce it to a client. So we will teach, like when I work with a larger company, I say we coach the managers and we train the team. So we coach the managers, that's who we're really teaching. The team, we're exposing them to information that they might not have seen before. And then we use the manager as the example. So with these one-on-one conversations, it's not as much of how do you have them, it's, all right, we open up our blue book, right? Everyone has them. What are you focused on? What are you grateful for? And in that, we have the 4 goals in those 4 areas. So what do you got going on? And then let them share. Some people don't want to share their internal stuff. Some people don't want to share their physical goals. That's fine. We're not forcing people to come out. We're just having people being comfortable talking. And when time comes and they have something worth sharing, they're going to. And we're there to hear it. We're not there to be a shoulder to cry on. We're there to help support them so they can still do their job while the rest of life comes at them. External factors have always affected motivation, except for right now, they're happening much faster and they're much more impactful, right? So with that, change is happening faster. And we joke, we say, change is inevitable. Growth is intentional. So let's bring these one-on-ones in. So sorry, I know I get excited talking about these things. So going to your one-on-ones, having the conversation, we sit down, and I always tell people, where's your blue, right? Our books are blue that we have all our clients use. And because they have a tool and a system to go through, people are a little bit more comfortable sharing. Versus if I was to say, so tell me what's going on in your life. Like there's doctors who do that and they have trouble doing it, right? Like that's something that you have been trained to do. I'm not, right? I'm a dumb salesperson that happens to now have a business, right? Which is kind of how my entrepreneurial journey started. I'm not the softest person in the world, right? My empathy level is not at an all-time high unless I have to turn it on and be conscious about it. So I want a structure to have these conversations. So that's what we give to our clients.
So I'm going to tell you something. As a trained psychologist, I've done therapy with clients. I have done it since I've been in the coaching world for the last 17 years or so. I've done coaching sessions. I've learned early on never to go into an unstructured conversation. And if I open a conversation with, tell me what's going on in your life, oh my gosh, we're going to be all over the place and nothing productive or helpful is going to happen in between you and I don't have a lot of empathy either.
It's tough.
I want to know what's going on with people and I want to connect, but I want to get to what's meaningful and what matters. And so having a structure, we start off with wins and successes. We talk about what are you grateful for? Those simple questions, 4 simple questions like you're talking about can structure a conversation, and it can be a conversation that's going to go somewhere meaningful and productive versus just let's shoot the breeze. So I really have an appreciation for what you're sharing there. We just have a few minutes left. I'm curious for business owners out there who are looking at, they have some great team members that they've brought on. They know they've hired A players. At least they were an A player when they were hired. And since that team member has been on board, they've seen the motivation go down. And especially with the stressors that are in people's lives right now, given, COVID and different other things going on in the world. What are 1 or 2 tips that you would have for really how to reconnect or build a connection and get the motivation?
So the main character of our book is called Unmo. Right? Unmo is a long distance cousin from Elmo, right? Elmo's the chirpity. Elmo's the person you hire. Elmo's the person you get if you don't do anything to nurture that person. So in a situation where someone's going downhill, no question, exactly what you said, there is an external factor happening. Unless you were creating a terrible work environment, which I am assuming most people listening to this care about their people, otherwise they wouldn't be listening to a podcast like this, right? The disgruntled employee rarely comes from the disgruntled workplace. It's usually something outside. So what I would do is I would start going through, right, what's going on with our system? Are you using your planner? Well, and what they'll usually start with, I'm just a little overwhelmed, right? And this is my favorite because overwhelmed doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. We talked about this 80-20 principle of planning. 80% of your life you can plan, 20% you can't. My goal is not to work on the 20%. My goal is to make that 80% rock solid so that when the 20% comes, you can manage it. So when individuals come to me and say, I'm overwhelmed, I go, oh, perfect. Let me see your planner. So now what you're doing is you're taking this emotion, overwhelmed, that you can't express or really understand, and we're putting some logic around it to start going, okay, are we really overwhelmed? Rarely are they. Put it on paper. Let me see. We're using your planner? No. Okay, well, go use your planner and let's talk because I want to see what's going on. I want to help. I want to see what I could pull from you. And it's 1 of 2 things happens. Either they don't come back, which means they realized like they're not overwhelmed. And we still want to address what's going on, right? We don't sit there and go, I told you. Or they will come back. And I've had this happen. And, admins would come in and say, no, I'm overwhelmed. Look, you've told me to do 15 things today and I don't know what to do. And I go, well, those 13 can be done. Like they're not even really important. These 3 need to be done right now. Oh, okay, cool. I just need a direction. That way, right? Now, when they come in and if they're bugging out and they want to have this conversation and they're feeling overwhelmed, they're dipping like you're saying, my job as a manager is to help that individual do their job. What do you need? I mean, I've even had clients of mine go pick up dry cleaning for people, right? Like, that's your issue? Let me do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need something, you need food. What's the deal, right? You're worried about this rent being due. All right, so let's figure out some solutions, right? I'm a creative person. You're a creative person. Now, all of a sudden, Unmo knows you care.
Yeah.
Not because you said you care, not because you have something painted on the wall that says you care, right? Like, they know you care because you just cared. And that's such a big deal when it comes to this. So if someone's dipping, that's the first thing I do is like, okay, where in the formula are we missing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it me? Am I the hypocrite? Is it them? Meaning I'm doing what I need to be doing, they're good. Or are we not giving them the system or the tools to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those 3 things. Once I know where it is in the formula, I can focus in on it and adjust and help.
Yeah.
And that's why we love doing this. And that's why our job is not to then manipulate, it's to enlighten them. It's to connect dots for them, to bring that reality of, corporate desired metrics with individual desired, lifestyles. How do we blend that together? You're bothered because you're working too much and you can't hike. Let's do this. Let's finish this project. Why don't you take next Friday off and go hike?
Yeah.
Like, let's add something to it, right? If we got to get it done, let's get it done. Or you're bothered because, and this is something I learned was, my one warehouse manager, like spending time with his kids was all he cared about. So whenever we'd have a late shipment, I could either ask him to stay by, which would be the first part. He gets paid the most, so I should ask him, right? stick back, we have a late shipment? Or do I ask the kid who could do the same thing, who has no family and would love time and a half to have overtime, right? What's the more expensive decision? It's taking that person who loves his family and pulling from that deposit without knowing it, because I'm not thinking or hearing what's he focused on this week. He's focused on this ballet rehearsal. This is a big warehouse guy. What's he talking? Why does he care about a ballet rehearsal? Right? Like, man, we got shipments coming in. Like, you're all about the team. Can you stay late? Yeah, sure. Let me tell my wife I can't go to the ballet rehearsal. That is a massive pull. And I guarantee you he would have said yes.
Yeah.
He would have absolutely said he was a team player through and through. And that's the one thing I find as owners and managers, we tend to ask of things of people and they think they have to sacrifice major things to make it happen that we would never want them to sacrifice. And now all of a sudden they're going way above their pay grade, way above their job description, and we appreciate it, but we don't need it. And I always tell my employees, I say, look, that's not your job. I really appreciate you wanting to support and help, but you don't need to drive to the customer's house and rub their feet.
Yeah.
That's not what we do.
Yeah.
Right? There's other ways to address it.
So this is huge. There's two things that really stand out to me about what you're sharing. Number one, the power of focused attention. When we give someone the gift of our undivided attention and we really listen to them, that's the most valuable gift we can give them. So just that conversation of listening. And so I'm saying that for our profit designers, because as you're hearing Matt say all this, you're thinking, I want to ask all the right questions and I want to find out the system and I want to do it all just right.
Yeah.
The structure is there and it's very important and it'll help you go deeper and deeper. The first place to start is just being present with someone. That's a beautiful gift. And then the other big point, the big takeaway that I hear in what you're sharing is that if we are not getting to know our employees on an individual basis and understanding their personal lives, our A players always step up and give more. Whenever there is a problem or an obstacle that we're dealing with on the team, those A players are going to dig in and overexert themselves, and they will sacrifice family time and other things that are important to them. We may not know about it, and every time they do that, we're making a withdrawal unknowingly from their emotional bank account, and their motivation over time is going to go down.
Absolutely.
So simply taking that time to get to know what matters to them and helping them evaluate their choices, particularly when they're feeling overwhelmed or their back's up against the wall and they want to do their best for us.
Absolutely.
So if we know what's going on, we can help them make choices that align with what's important to them in their life while still hitting the company goals. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So that's how we create these life-sustaining businesses.
That's awesome. I agree. And that's what makes it fun. It makes it, people don't want to get into these serious conversations. It makes it more worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, I love growing my business, not just for my own personal gain, but the life I get to build for the people around what it is, because I know their story, right? And I know what's going on with them. And I know what this is impacting way outside of the dollar or the bottom line, what's coming in my pocket. I see that every day. It changes the way you do business and it changes the way you enjoy life while doing it.
That's beautiful. I couldn't agree more. So Matt, I know you have a gift that you want to offer to our listeners. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk about that.
Yes. So we don't do it on every podcast, only the ones that we like, right? So when we have such alignment in kind of what we're talking about, I just love what you guys are doing with teams, with the podcast, with your coaching, with everything you're doing, because there's so many people who need what you and I do that there's no way either one of us could do it to everybody. Like everyone is dying for this. So one thing that I like to do is kind of create kind of like a DIY version of what we do. It's a very simple, we'll call it the pod gift. And I still have to kind of create what it's fully going to be, but we basically package all of our coaching and content into one thing and offer that out to people. So if you want to see it, get a taste of what we're doing, that'll be we'll do it at lifepulseinc.com/pod gift. All I do ask is if you do come on, just put in this podcast title, just so we know where you're coming from and we can come back and have conversation. If you have any questions, obviously you can check us out there. You can reach out to info@lifepulseinc.com. Our website's lifepulseinc.com, or you can grab the book or the planner on our website or on Amazon. But we appreciate just seeing other people doing similar things and recognizing that truth, although it stays constant, it has different applications, which is exactly how I relate what we do with what you do. Completely different application, completely different level of when we do it and where we do it in the organization, but the same truth that humans are humans and they work in a very specific way. And there's a lot more we can get from them and they can get for themselves. That
is awesome. So let's give the URL one more time for where people can get this gift.
Yep. So it's lifepulseinc.com/pod gift, PODGIFT.
Okay. And when you go to download that, please enter Profit by Design podcast so that Matt and his team will know that you heard about them on our podcast.
Absolutely.
So Matt, thank you so much for being here. The nuggets of wisdom that you shared here, I think are going to have some big impact out there for our.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Appreciate everything you guys are doing.
If your business is taking over your life and you're ready to take your life back, Tap the Potential's Better Business, Better Life program could be just what you're looking for. By the end of your first year in our program, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than ever. Get started. Take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.